So a while ago, I made a community post on my channel asking you guys what characters in the Sonic franchise you wanted to learn how to draw. And unsurprisingly, one of the more popular answers that I got was Shadow. So today I'm going to show you guys how to draw the ultimate life form himself.
Hi, future me here. I forgot to mention that I already posted 2 Shadow the Hedgehog drawing tutorials in shorts form. The first one that you see right here, I've posted on my YouTube channel already. You can find that on my shorts page. The second one right here, I've shared on my TikTok account. So if you're not following me on TikTok, I sometimes post tutorials there as well. Obviously, this tutorial is longer because there is more explanation behind the drawing process, but those other shorter tutorials are uploaded if you guys want to check them out. All right, let's get back to the video.
Now, just to be clear, this is how I draw Shadow, so my process of drawing Shadow might be different from one of your other favorite artists or one of the official Sonic artists, so just know that this is my process with drawing Shadow, and hopefully by the end of drawing this video, drawing Shadow will be as easy as taking candy from a baby. Which is fine by me. Let's get started. All right, so for this tutorial, we're not gonna go crazy with the pose. We're just gonna do a neutral standing pose just to keep it simple. And I'm going to start with what I always do when I'm drawing Sonic characters, drawing their basic anatomy. So I usually start with a nice big circle for the head. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle, you know, we're not SpongeBob in that one episode. And then we're gonna draw 2 guidelines to show which way Shadow is going to be looking. Next, we're gonna draw a curved line. It's gonna kind of curve out to about here. This is where his chest is. And then it's gonna curve inwards and go about yay far down. That's gonna be like his torso area. Then we're gonna curve it in just a little bit right here. It may also help to add another guideline right here to show which way his upper body is facing. And when I'm drawing Sonic or Shadow, what I like to do next is I actually like to draw their back spines. So we're gonna draw a line coming out like this. Then we're gonna bring it in like so. And the way that I usually like to describe drawing not just their back spines, but usually drawing their quills as well, I usually like to describe it as drawing a shark fin. Because if you were to like rotate this on its side, it does kind of look like a shark fin pointing out of the water. That's just how I like to describe it. I don't know, you guys might be different. And then to finish drawing the upper body, we're gonna draw another curved line like so. So for the upper body, you should have something that looks like this. Now we're gonna draw his legs. So I'm gonna draw one straight line going down like this, kind of slanting diagonally towards the left. And then I'm gonna draw another straight line, also kind of going diagonally to the left, but also a bit more perpendicular. But in general, you should have something that looks like this. And then I'm not going to go crazy detailed with the shoes yet, but I'm going to draw just the basic shapes that make up Shadow shoes. So we're going to have like the shoe, I don't know what you would call this, like the shoe tongue or whatever you want to call it. Then we're going to draw a few curved lines here. These are going to be for the inhibitor rings on his shoes. What I'm going to do is I like to draw a little curved guideline here to show which way the shoe is pointing. And we're going to draw another curved line right here. And then we're going to draw kind of like this like trapezoid shape right here. This is where the little jet thingies are. The parts that make his air shoes his air shoes. I'm gonna draw another curved line right there. And then we're just gonna draw some diagonal lines right here. Now, obviously it's not super detailed yet, but once we get to the details of his shoes, it'll look a lot better. But so far you should have something like this. Now we're gonna work on the other shoe. So we're gonna draw kind of a similar shape that we drew for the shoe that we just drew. We're gonna draw another curve, and then another curve for the other shoe's inhibitor ring. And then this one, we're gonna draw a curved line pointing out like so. And we're gonna draw, again, kind of like that same trapezoid shape, but this time it's pointing out a bit more diagonally this way. So you don't really see like the full trapezoid shape. And we're gonna draw a couple diagonal lines shooting up like this. Then we're gonna draw another little diagonal line right there. We're gonna draw a little diagonal line right there. And a little diagonal line right there. And another little diagonal line right there. There's a lot of diagonal lines that make up Shadow's shoes. And we're gonna add another little diagonal line right there. Then we're gonna kind of connect this shape over here like so. So again, not super detailed, but so far you should have something like this. And honestly, I probably shouldn't have gone this detailed with the shoes right off the bat. You honestly could have just drawn like a shape like this, sort of, kind of like Sonic's shoes to sort of start out. That's kind of the habit that I've built over the years with drawing Shadow's shoes, just kind of going about this level of detailed with the shoes to start off with. This might come down to like a preference thing with some people, but this is just how I do it. But all in all, so far, you should have something like this. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw his arms. So I like to draw a little circle right here. This is gonna be where his shoulder is. And then we're just gonna draw a curved line sticking out like so. And then similarly to what we did with the shoes, we're gonna draw the cuffs of his gloves, which will look kind of like this. We're gonna draw those curved lines for his inhibitor rings. And then for his hand, I'm just gonna draw just kind of like a circle shape. So for this pose, he's gonna be making like a fist. So just to start off with, as long as you have this little basic circle shape right here, this is a good starting point. And then his other arm is also gonna make a fist. So we're gonna draw a diagonal line like this. And then we're gonna have it bend like this. You can even draw another little line right there to show how wide the arm is gonna be. And we're gonna draw the handcuff. And if you're on digital, always feel free to rotate your canvas, or if you're on paper, feel free to rotate your sketchbook to make this a little bit easier to draw. We're gonna draw that. We're gonna draw his cuff and the inhibitor ring. And then for this hand position, we're gonna draw a bit more detailed of a shape than the other hand. So we're gonna draw curve like this, and we're gonna have a line come in and another curve up like this. And we're gonna draw another line right here, and then we're gonna draw one little oval right here, which is gonna be his thumb. So it's another fist pose, but since the fingers are showing, we're gonna draw this shape slightly different than what we did for this hand right here. So here is our basic Shadow anatomy. Again, this is how I always like to start off with drawing characters. It's the easiest way, in my opinion, to get a good idea of what pose you're trying to draw for the character. And I think in general, it's just really a good thing to break down a character into its most basic shapes to get started, and to make sure that all of the proportions look accurate. It just makes things a lot easier before moving into the finer details. So I'm going to lower my opacity now, and speaking of those finer details, let's move on to those finer details. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to start with Shadow's face. We're going to start with the muzzle, and hedgehog muzzles in the Sonic world kind of look like beans, like kidney beans, or I guess a lot of different types of beans actually have this shape. But you're essentially going to draw this curved shape. It's going to extend out to here, and then it's going to come back and meet down here at where his chin area would be. I'm actually going to round this off just a little bit. I feel like I made it a little bit too pointy. We're not drawing knuckles here, we're drawing Shadow. And his nose is kind of the same bean shape, just a little bit smaller and a little bit skinnier. We're gonna draw it right near the edge of where his muzzle sticks out. Don't be afraid to erase a couple lines that we don't need. Now I'm gonna draw just a little circle in here, as a little nose highlight. And then if you want, you can color in the nose as well. So far, you should have something that looks like this. So now for his eyes, we're gonna start around where this part of his muzzle starts to curve up. We're gonna draw a line right here. We're gonna draw a diagonal line shooting up like this. And then another diagonal line that's a bit less steep that comes out like that. Then we're gonna draw a curve that meets up where that diagonal line is. And that is 1/2 of Shadow's mono eye. So now we're gonna draw a little curve that separates this eyebrow from this eyebrow, which we're gonna draw right now. We're gonna draw a little line right here. We're gonna draw a diagonal line shooting up like this. And then we're gonna draw a curved line curving up like so. So that is going to be Shadow's eyes. As you can see, based on the guidelines, he is looking a bit off towards the right this way, which is what we want. And then for the eyebrows, we're just gonna draw a few diagonal lines. We're gonna draw 2 over here for this eyebrow. And then for this eyebrow over here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start kind of where our guideline circle shape is. We're gonna draw it curving out like this. Then we're gonna curve it back in this way. And of course, it is not Shadow without his red guy liner. So we're gonna draw a little curve right here. So that's the red markings for this side. And then for this side, it's gonna kind of follow the shape of the eye. So it's gonna kind of come out like this. And it'll curve in to match the shape of the eye, like so. So there are Shadow's eyes, and so far you should have something that looks like this. Now I like to move on to the ears, which are going to sit about right above where the eyebrows are supposed to go. And his ears are pretty straightforward to draw. They're essentially just 2 triangles. So we're gonna draw 1 triangle over here, and then we're gonna draw another triangle right here that's gonna kind of be tilting the other way as opposed to where the other ear was tilting. The fabled tilted ears. And inside these triangles, we're going to draw 2 smaller triangles, one over here for this ear, and then a slightly skinnier one over here for this ear to show that this ear is kind of pointing towards which way Shadow's looking, like they're both kind of pointing in the same direction. But those are the ears. Pretty straightforward. Now, one thing that isn't as straightforward as his ears are his quills. And his quills are notably something that I still kind of struggle to draw, but I think I'm pretty decent at it. We're gonna start with the top quill here. So the top quill is gonna curve up like so. Essentially just kind of starts off like Sonic's quills do. And like we did with the back spines, we're gonna draw that same like shark fin shape here. And also with Shadow's quills is where you kind of have to make like a stylistic design choice, because his quills have been kind of drawn in a few different ways over the years. If you were to look at like a 3D model of Shadow, his quills are usually a bit more curved, whereas in 2D media, like in Sonic X, the quills usually look a little bit more angular. My personal opinion, I think if you're going to draw a 2D Shadow the Hedgehog, then the quills should definitely be a bit more angular as opposed to more curved like in the video games. So for this drawing, we're definitely going to go with the more angular approach to drawing to drawing his quills. So there's the top quill. It should look kind of like that. And now for the next quill, we're going to draw a diagonal line like this, another diagonal line like this, and a third one like that. So you should kind of have this sort of thing going. It's almost like a curve, but you can see that there are straight lines that are making up this shape here. And we're gonna curve down like this. We're gonna draw another line right here. I think I might have actually drawn this a little bit too wide, so I'm just gonna clean this up real quick, bring it in just a little bit. But in general, you should have something that kind of looks like this. And then for our final quill, I'm actually gonna start from the bottom. So we're gonna draw a line that kind of curves out this way, and then another line that curves up like this. And then we're gonna draw diagonal line right there, and diagonal line up here. Just gonna clean up some of the lines we drew here. But in general, these are how Shadow's quills usually look. And one thing that might help is if you kind of draw just like a little curved guideline here. If you look at Shadow's quills, they kind of follow like the same, they're on like the same like curved path. So you can kind of use that to sort of gauge how the quills should be shaped. Like for example, this one could probably be taken in just a little bit more, like maybe about like right there maybe. And just clean up some of these extra lines here. Might take a little bit of finessing, a little TLC. And then sometimes, depending on both the style and the angle that Shadow's looking, you'll actually sometimes see like one of the quills on the other side of his head kind of poking out over here. Like it'll kind of be like right here. Usually on the bottom half, shade this in to show that it's in the background. And then once again, similar to his red guy liner, we got to get those red streaks in on the quills. The bottom two quills are definitely a lot easier. Basically just start at the corner, draw one diagonal line kind of going towards almost the middle, but not quite. And then just connect it at the other end like so. And then I kind of started unintentionally doing that with this quill over here, but we're going to kind of do the same thing. We're just going to kind of follow the path of the quill and then just have it connect at both corners over here. And then if you want, you can go in and erase some of the extra lines. And then based on the direction that Shadow's looking, which is over this way, the way we're going to draw this front red streak is we're going to start kind of where the quill starts to bend downwards towards his forehead. And we're just going to draw a line that follows the path like so. And then once we kind of get down to where the tops of the eyebrows meet, which is like right here, we're just going to curve the streak up like so. And boom, we got Shadow's quills done. Bada boom, bada bing. So now we're going to move on to his chest and his upper body. I know what you're thinking. Oh, Jake, you forgot to draw in his pupils and his mouth and all that. I'm weird. I like to save that to the end. That's just me. That's just a weird thing that I do. I just kind of save that towards the end. So live and learn, I guess. All right, so now a signature part of Shadow's design obviously is his chest fur. His chest fur is basically an upside down triangle, or maybe even kind of like a diamond shape when you really think about it. The way I like to do it, just draw a couple triangle shapes that kind of look like this, kind of curve down about here. We're gonna draw it curving up like this. And right here, I'm actually gonna make this triangle just a little bit wider. And now we're just gonna follow the path of his body that we drew earlier. And we're gonna leave a couple gaps here for where his legs are gonna go. And then his legs, pretty straightforward, just a couple straight lines shooting down like so. So there's one leg, and we got the other leg over here. And you want to try and make sure that they're roughly the same width. One leg isn't skinnier or wider than the other. So there's his legs. Now, real quick, we'll draw the back spine right here. And then one thing that I didn't draw when we were working on the outline was his tail, which would go right about here. And that's just a couple curved lines that look like so. So there is Shadow's body. Now we're gonna move on to the arms and the hands. So we're gonna start with this arm. We're gonna start by drawing a curve right here, and we're just gonna draw 2 lines that sort of follow the curved line that we drew when we were drawing the guidelines. And we're just gonna draw a little line right there. That's just gonna kind of show where his armpit is. I guess that's what this would be. And then here is where we get into the details of his gloves. So I'm gonna draw, or start by drawing, I should say, this sort of red tongue that his gloves have here. Basically just gonna be a rectangle. And then inside that rectangle, we're gonna draw a slightly smaller rectangle that's a bit offset a little bit. Like this side is a bit closer together than this side over here. And then we'll just draw the same shape that we drew earlier. And of course, we'll draw the curves of his inhibitor rings. So far, for his hands, he should have something that looks like this. And then now for the hand position, like I said, this is gonna be a fist. I would start with the thumb shape. So we're gonna draw a little curve right here, followed by another little curve. It's gonna kind of curl in like so. And we're gonna draw another curved line. If you're catching on to the theme, there's a lot of curved lines that make up Shadow's body. And I'm gonna draw another curve. I feel like there's a better way to describe this than just draw a curve, but I can't really think of one. Because we're gonna draw a nice little curve right there, and that's his index finger. Then we're just gonna draw some bumps. Here we go, I'm gonna use a different word now. We're gonna draw some bumps that will represent all of his other fingers. So there's middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. And then we're just gonna draw the other part of his hand, which is, again, just another curved line. So that's one hand. Now, let's move on to the other arm and hand. Again, we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna draw some curved lines that follow the guideline that we drew earlier. And then again, you can rotate your paper or your canvas to make this a little bit easier. We're gonna draw this hand's cuffs, which is kind of like a curved trapezoid when you look at it from this angle. And of course, we're gonna draw the inhibitor ring. And then here is where it gets kind of fun, or maybe not fun, depending on what your opinions on drawing Sonic hands are. Here is where we're gonna draw the fingers. So we're gonna start with the pinky. So the knuckle of the pinky is gonna be kind of this curved line right here. And we're gonna draw a curved line going down like this. And then here is where sort of that top knuckle is gonna be. Draw this right here, and then draw just another curved line right here, and another curve right there. And I'm actually gonna erase that and draw this curved line right here. But in general, you should have something that looks like that. And then the rest of the fingers are honestly pretty straightforward. They just kind of go behind the pinky here. So just draw a couple overlapping rounded rectangles, basically. And then for the thumb, essentially going to be that rounded oval that we drew, but I'm actually going to draw it just slightly more rectangular. We're actually going to draw like a little curve right there. And there are your arms and your hands. So you should have something that looks like this. And now we move on to what is arguably the most challenging part of Shadow's design, the shoes. I think if you ask anyone what the most challenging part of Shadow is to draw, it's most likely the shoes. Some people might say the quills, some people might say the hands. I think more often than not, people really struggle with the shoes. So I'm gonna try my best to explain this. We're gonna start kind of the same way that we drew the hands earlier. So his shoes have this similar red tongue, which is essentially just this rounded rectangle shape. And then obviously, like the gloves, his shoes have their inhibitor rings. And we're gonna draw this curved shape right here. And we're actually gonna draw just a little line right there to show that the shoe is kind of facing slightly downward, and to also kind of show that there is a hole here where his feet go in. So we're just gonna kind of follow the same lines that we drew earlier for the main shape of his shoe. And I think it's where it gets to here where things start to get a little tricky. And you may want to zoom in if you're on digital, kind of get up close and personal with Shadow's feet. Diagonal shape right here, followed by another diagonal shape right here, and then another diagonal shape right here. So as you can see, I kind of broke my original guidelines here, but that's fine. I just realized that this part should be a little bit thicker, because now if we draw a straight line down here and draw basically those same diagonal lines that we drew earlier, you can kind of see the shape starting to form here. And we're going to draw those same diagonal lines down here, and boom, there you go. There's the front of Shadow's shoes. And we're just going to kind of follow those lines that we drew earlier. See how helpful it is to draw guidelines, folks? I'm telling you, always start with your guidelines first. Makes things a lot easier down the road. And then for this shoe, we're going to draw a couple curved lines coming down like so. This is going to be where that black stripe is supposed to go. And it's going to kind of meet where, if it's easier to see on this other shoe, it's basically where kind of like where this corner is over here. And then we're going to draw another curved line right here. And if you want, you can color those in right like so. And then you can also color in the top cuff right here if you want as well. And of course, we can't forget the little jet right here that sort of pokes out the front. And to draw that, it's essentially just going to draw a little oval right here, draw a couple lines kind of going into the inside of the shoe like so, and then just kind of draw another smaller oval in the middle. So there we go. That is one shoe, and that's arguably the more challenging shoe, I would say, to draw. I think the one that's facing a bit more to the side is a bit easier. So let's move on to that now. As per usual, we're going to start with the red shoe tongue, which is again just a little red rectangle, another little red rectangle in the middle. That's kind of a tongue twister. Little red rectangle, little red rectangle, little red rectangle, little red rectangle, goal. And then for this shoe, you can see that the smaller rectangle is a bit more towards this side of the shoe, because the shoe is facing over this way. Draw in that inhibitor ring. Then we're going to draw the darker part of the shoe cuff like so. And then now we're essentially just going to follow the shapes that we drew earlier. Once again, guidelines, folks. Helps out a lot. Makes things a lot easier, especially when drawing something as complicated as Shadow's shoes. So yeah, we're just going to follow these diagonal lines that we drew. I'm actually going to kind of break model just a little bit. And then it's not really that noticeable, but if you want, you can kind of just draw a little small circle right there, just to show where that jet is supposed to go. And then if you want, you can color in this part of the shoe as well. And there you go. Those are Shadow's shoes. Now on his arms and legs, as I'm sure you all know, he does have some red streaks there as well. So we're going to draw those in. And you're only going to see one on this arm right here, kind of look like that. Basically just a long triangle, because as I'm sure you know, the streaks are on the outer side of his arm, not on the inside, like over here. So we're just going to draw one here, and then we're just going to draw a diagonal line going down like this for the streak on this leg. We're not going to draw one on this leg because it would be on the other side of this leg. So we don't really need to draw one on that one, just right here. And then finally, because I'm a weirdo when I draw characters, we're going to finish off with the eyes and the mouth. His eyes are pretty straightforward. We're just going to draw one oval here, and then we're going to draw another more cut off oval right here. And then inside this eye right here, we're just going to draw little oval. And then another little oval. Like so. And then over here, you don't really see the lighter oval. You just kind of see the darker oval, which is the pupil. And then finally, we'll end it off with a nice brooding frown, which is essentially just a curved line. And then one thing I totally forgot to draw, I'm actually just going to draw a little curved line right here to show where his face is. And I'm going to have the quill right here kind of go up like so. But yeah, afterwards, if you want, you can outline it and color it. But yeah, that is essentially how you draw Shadow. Now, I know some parts of Shadow's design can be kind of tricky to draw. Like, for example, like I said earlier, the shapes of the quills can be kind of tricky. The shoes are arguably the most challenging part of his design. But just keep practicing, and pretty soon you'll be a pro at drawing the ultimate life form. But there is one character that I think a lot of people would say is even more difficult to draw than Shadow, and that is Vector. Now, I made a tutorial on how to draw Vector back in 2023, but honestly, I might redo it just because I feel like now I can draw a pretty decent Vector. But if you guys do want to learn how to draw Vector, you can check out my tutorial if you want, and you can let me know how terrible I was at drawing Vector back then. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what other characters you guys would like to see tutorials on in the comments down below. And if you're new around here, my name is Jake. I post a lot of Sonic fan art and drawing tutorials, so if you like the artsy side of Sonic, then please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any future videos or live streams. And that's about it. See ya.